When we talk about a major illness, our minds usually jump to the big, dramatic moments, the diagnosis, the treatment, the crisis. But what about everything that comes after? What does that long, quiet road to recovery actually feel like day to day? Well, today we get a really rare and personal look inside that journey, all through one patient's diary, and it reveals this powerful truth about what it really means to heal. This single sentence written by our patient is basically the theme for this entire explainer. It perfectly sums up the whole month. It's this delicate balancing act, right? Between feeling that relief and knowing you have to stay vigilant. It's a tightrope walk that pretty much defines the reality of getting better. So what we're doing is following 1 month, March of 2025, in the life of a patient who's recovering from leukemia and a transplant. And this isn't about the dramatic hospital scenes you see in movies. Nope. This is about the quiet, persistent, and honestly, often challenging work of just rebuilding a life. Okay, so let's dive into our first theme, serenity and prudence. The month kicks off on a real high note, a wave of relief that brings this really welcome sense of peace. But as you'll see, it's a peace that definitely comes with some strings attached. The 1st of March brings just incredible news. A whole series of tests all come back clear. This is that serenity he's been desperately waiting for. But even right there in the middle of all that good news, you see it. The next checkup is already on the calendar. That need for prudence, for caution, it's always there, like a constant companion to the relief. And that caution, well, it leads us right into our next point. Recovery isn't just about kicking back and resting. It's an active, demanding, really, it's a marathon of medical appointments and constant self-monitoring. Just look at this schedule for a second. It is packed. I mean, from vaccines to specialists, his calendar is basically run by the need to manage every single aspect of his health. This is not a passive waiting game at all. It's a full-time job. So on March 5th, he gets 2 more post-transplant vaccines. That brings his total up to 8. Now, this is absolutely crucial for rebuilding his immune system, which was basically wiped clean by the treatment. 8, that sounds like a pretty solid number, right? But here's the thing. When you zoom out, you see the bigger picture. He's only 1/3 of the way through a 24-dose vaccination plan. So for every step forward, there's this very clear reminder of just how long the road ahead still is. And even the results from these visits highlight that same need for careful management. The thyroid thing, it's minor for now, but it has to be watched. And a small spot on a tooth, for you or me, that's just an annoyance. For him, it's a potential risk that has to be dealt with quickly to avoid a bigger procedure and the risk of infection. Okay, so all of this constant medical attention, it builds right into the third part of his journey, rebuilding physical strength. This is the physical side of recovery, and it's just as complex. It's slow, sometimes it's really frustrating, but ultimately, you can measure it. He loves to hike, and it's kind of become a barometer for his fitness. One week he feels awesome. The next, on some tougher terrain, he really feels the fatigue and that frustrating reality that he's still, as he puts it, out of form. It's such a good reminder that progress is never just a straight line.
But then there's this number. He's monitoring his health every day, and he notices his blood pressure is consistently hanging around 90/50. Now, at first, he thought this was a problem, that it was way too low.
But then he did his own research and found this. As long as there aren't other symptoms, this number that seemed low is actually a powerful sign of his improving heart health. So what he thought was a weakness was actually a sign of his growing strength. How cool is that? This brings us to a really pivotal moment in the diary. It's one that gives crucial context for this whole journey. You could say it's the emotional core of the story, 3 years later. A simple date, but for the author, it's an anniversary. It's the moment his entire world just turned upside down. 3 years ago, on this exact date, his whole ordeal began. And this quote, wow, it just reveals the immense psychological weight he's been carrying. It's a really stark reminder of the stakes, of the fear and pain that have been a part of his life for so, so long. And it all started with something so small, so random. A simple hike, and then the next day, a sharp pain in his Achilles tendon. That was the very first sign of the leukemia that threw him into this 3-year battle. This anniversary, for him, is a moment to look back and see just how far he's come from that terrifying start.
Okay, this all brings us to the end of the month and a trip to Parma, Italy. It's a moment where his deep, deep desire for normalcy just clashes head-on with the fragile reality of his recovery. Physically, he's pushing himself, walking an average of 12 kilometers a day. I mean, that's a huge testament to his renewed strength. But with an immune system that's still compromised, navigating the world takes a lot more than just physical stamina. This is the mental calculus of his vacation. Every single decision is filtered through this lens of risk. He can't just go to dinner. He has to go the second the restaurant opens so it's empty. He can't just wander through a museum. He has to be ready to bolt if it gets too crowded. And this moment right here really captures the emotional price of all that caution. During a tour, the group is offered a cheese tasting. But for him, the risk, sharing food, being in close contact, it's just too great. So he makes an excuse and leaves, missing out on that shared social moment. It's a small thing, but it's also a heartbreaking little sacrifice. So, after this trip, after this entire month of ups and downs, what has he actually learned about finding a new normal? The evidence is right here. He compares this trip to one he took back in October. After that first trip, he came home sick. This time, after Parma, he's just tired. That's it. It's a tangible, undeniable sign that he's making real progress. His body is getting stronger. It's becoming more resilient. And that leaves us with this final thought. What his diary really shows us is that recovery isn't about going back to the person you were before. It's a process of becoming someone new. More serene, yes, like he said, but also and always more prudent. It's all about finding a new way to live and a whole new definition of what normal can truly be.